I've been married to my wife, Sarah, for 6 years now. To outsiders, we were the perfect couple. We had our quirks, sure, but we made it work. I loved her in a way that felt deep and unwavering, and I thought she felt the same. But then the cracks started to show, nothing major at first, just little things that made me raise an eyebrow. She became more secretive with her phone, stayed out late with her friends more often, and her excuses for not wanting to be intimate grew increasingly flimsy. For instance, one night she claimed she was working late at the office. I was supportive, of course, trying to be understanding about her job as an event planner. But when I casually checked her office Instagram later, I saw she had tagged herself at a bar with her friends. No work, just a night out. My gut twisted, but I brushed it off, thinking I was just being paranoid. Then came our anniversary. I arranged for a small gathering with close friends and hired a wedding singer, Justin, who was loved for his smooth voice and charm. I thought it would be a nice nod to our wedding day. Sarah seemed excited, but there was an undercurrent of tension I couldn't shake. During the party, I noticed her getting overly flirty with Justin, laughing loudly at his jokes and leaning in a little too close. I reminded myself I was probably imagining things. After all, it was just a party, and Justin did have a way with women. As the night progressed, the atmosphere changed. I stepped outside for some fresh air, needing a moment to clear my head from the doubts swirling around me. I needed to take a breather away from the jubilant music and laughter, and that's when I saw it, her phone, lying on the kitchen counter, buzzing. I felt a strange pull to it, as though it were a magnet. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up. My heart raced as I unlocked it with the fingerprint I had memorized since we first got together. What I found next shattered my world. Text messages lit up the screen, and they were not from any friend. They were from Justin. "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. I miss our little rendezvous," one read. Another followed quickly. "You looked so beautiful last night, I can't get enough of you." My breath caught in my throat. I thought I might be sick. I scrolled further, feeling like I was drowning in an ocean of betrayal. They'd been exchanging flirty texts for weeks, and I was completely oblivious. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I felt a rush of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak, an emotional cocktail that had me reeling. I returned to the party, adrenaline pumping through my veins. My mind was racing, and as I looked for Sarah, my plans for the night shifted dramatically. I needed her to face this. I needed everyone to witness the truth. When I found her, she was giggling with Justin again. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and called out, "Sarah." The room quieted, and every eye turned to us. I could feel the tension rise as I pulled out my phone, ready to expose the texts that had ripped my heart apart. "Can you explain this?" I asked, waving the phone as if it were a badge of honor, a reveal of her treachery. Her face paled, and she opened her mouth to speak, but stammered, caught completely off guard. She managed to recover quickly, her facade flickering back on. "Oh, come on, it's not what it looks like," she exclaimed, trying to weave a narrative that she was just being friendly, that Justin was just a musician who meant nothing to her, lies rolling off her tongue without a second thought. But I wasn't in the mood for her fabrications. I felt a fire ignite within me. "Not what it looks like." "Texting him about missing your rendezvous sounds pretty clear-cut to me," I shot back, my voice steady but laced with betrayal. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. The tension was palpable. Friends looked shocked, whispers filled the air, and Justin stood awkwardly, guilt painted across his face. "Please, let's talk about this later," she pleaded, but I wasn't going to let her brush this under the rug. "No, this is happening now. You need to explain yourself in front of everyone," I declared, feeling the weight of my emotions crashing down on me like waves against a rocky shore. As I stood there, adrenaline fueling my decision, I realized this was not just about revenge. It was about making her face the consequences of her actions, about making sure she understood the pain she had caused. I looked around at our friends, who were just as stunned as I was. Did they know? Had they picked up on the signs that I had missed? A part of me wanted to flee, to escape the humiliation, but I needed to see this through. As the awkward silence enveloped the room, I felt the weight of the moment settle heavily on my chest. This was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. The silence in the room was deafening. Friends exchanged glances, shock written all over their faces. Sarah was struggling to regain her composure, her usual confidence crumbling under the weight of my revelation. I could see her scrambling for words, desperately trying to weave a web of lies, but I wasn't going to let her escape this easily. "Sarah, you need to stop," I said firmly, my voice cutting through her attempts at damage control. "You can't just pretend this isn't happening." Her eyes darted around, looking for allies in the crowd. "This isn't fair. You're blowing things way out of proportion," protested, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. The facade was cracking, and I wasn't going to give her the chance to rebuild it. "Blowing things out of proportion. You're having an affair with our wedding singer, Sarah. That's not something I can just overlook." I felt my heart racing again, anger fueling each word. "Do you think this is a game to me?" The room was thick with tension. I could see some of our friends shifting uncomfortably, unsure whether to step in or just let the storm pass. Justin stood awkwardly, glancing between Sarah and me, clearly wishing he could disappear. Finally, Sarah snapped. "You don't understand. You've been so absorbed in your work that you didn't even notice me anymore." I felt lonely. Her voice rose, frustration spilling over into anger. "I thought you'd be happy for me to have a little fun." A part of me wanted to retort, to unleash all the pain I felt, but I took a breath, grounding myself. "Fun? Is that what you call it? Fun while you're married to me? You could have talked to me instead of running to him." "You're right, I should have talked to you," she said, the tone of her voice shifting slightly as if she knew she was losing ground. "But it was just a fling. It didn't mean anything. Just a fling." The word struck like a knife. I couldn't believe she would minimize what we had, what she had done. "Sarah, how can you even say that? You've been lying to me for weeks, and now you're trying to downplay it as if it's nothing." As I stared at her, I felt a mix of anger and sadness welling up inside me. I had given her my heart, and she had tossed it aside like it was nothing. Every shared moment, every laugh, every promise, I thought they meant something. "Maybe you thought you could get away with it because it was so well hidden," I continued, my voice steady, "but you were wrong. I found out, and now everyone else knows too. You didn't just betray me, you betrayed all of us." At that moment, I could see her face flush with a mix of shame and anger. It was a beautiful wedding we had, vibrant and alive. We'd said our vows in front of friends and family, promising to love and cherish each other. And now, looking at her, I felt that promise had become a hollow echo. "Let's just take a breath, okay?" I gestured for everyone to give us space, but I knew I needed to confront this head-on. "Sarah, I need you to tell me the truth. How long has this been going on?" She hesitated, her expression shifting. "A few months," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I could feel the air leave my lungs. "A few months of betrayal, and she had the gall to stand there and play the victim." "Months," I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "You've been lying to me for months, and now you want me to just forget it." "I didn't want to hurt you," she cried, her voice rising again. "I thought if I could just have a little fun on the side, it wouldn't affect us. I honestly thought we could fix things." "Fix things? By cheating?" I shook my head in disbelief. "You've only created a bigger mess. This isn't something we can just smooth over. You don't get to play the victim here." "Please, just let's talk about this later," she started, but I cut her off. "No, Sarah, this is the conversation we need to have now. You need to face what you've done. We can't pretend this isn't happening." The room was silent again, and I felt that familiar mixture of anger and heartbreak wash over me. Friends were starting to look uncomfortable, and I knew they hadn't signed up for this drama. But it was too late for niceties. Too late for pretending everything was fine. "Why did you even go for him?" I challenged, almost desperate for an explanation. "He was our wedding singer. Did you really think this would go unnoticed?" "He was charming. He listened to me." She burst out, her defenses crumbling. "You were always so wrapped up in your work, and he made me feel special again. I was just trying to escape." "Escape?" I echoed, incredulity lacing my tone. "You thought running to another man was the answer. You could have come to me, Sarah. You could have told me how you felt, and maybe we could have fixed things together." Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the gravity of her actions. "I was weak, okay? I didn't know how to talk to you about it. It was just an impulse." "An impulse?" I shouted, exasperated. "You threw away everything we built for a few impulsive moments. Do you even understand how much you've hurt me?" In that moment, as I looked into her eyes, I could see the realization dawning. She was backed into a corner, and there was nowhere to hide. It was as if all the defenses she had built up were crumbling, and the reality of what she had done was settling on her like a heavy blanket. But was it too late for us? Could we ever recover from this? The weight of that uncertainty hung in the air as I prepared to make the hardest decision of my life. The atmosphere in the room felt thick and charged, like a storm was brewing. I could see the tension on the faces of our friends as they processed the drama unfolding before them. Sarah stood there, staring at me wide-eyed, a mix of shame and defiance flickering across her features. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my next words pressing down on me. "Sarah, I need to know if this is something you genuinely want to fix," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Do you want us to try and salvage this marriage, or are you going to keep running back to him?" She opened her mouth, ready to respond, but the hesitation was evident. It felt like an eternity as silence enveloped us, and in that silence I felt my heart shatter a little more. "I don't know," she finally confessed, her voice trembling. "I made a mistake. I thought it was just a fling, and now I see how terrible it was, but I don't know how to go back." "Your mistake has consequences, Sarah. You don't just get to say you're sorry and expect everything to go back to normal," I replied, feeling anger bubbling up again. "Trust is broken, and it doesn't just magically heal." As I spoke, I felt the anger morphing into something more profound: sadness, loss. I had loved her fiercely, given her everything, and now I was standing here feeling like a ghost in my own life. "Can you at least tell me what you felt when you were with him? Was it really just about feeling special?" I asked, trying to understand her mindset. "What did you get from him that you didn't get from me?" She looked away, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It felt exciting," she admitted, her voice small and shaky. "He made me feel desired. I thought it would be a way to escape the monotony. But it turned into something much worse." That confession hit me like a punch to the gut. I had always felt that our relationship was solid, but it seemed like I had been living a lie. I had been so busy with work, trying to provide for us, that I overlooked the cracks that were forming. I had taken her for granted, and now I was paying the price. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought I could handle it, that it wouldn't go this far. But I didn't think it would lead to this." I felt the sting of tears in my own eyes but pushed them back. I refused to let her see me break. "You could have come to me. I would have done anything to help us, but instead you chose to betray me." "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "and I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to make it right." "Anything?" I challenged, my voice hardening. "What does that even mean? Are you willing to cut him out of your life for good? Can you promise me that you won't run back to him the minute things get tough again?" "I promise," she said, though I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "I'll block him. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I just need you to give me a chance." A part of me wanted to believe her. I wanted to think we could work through this and find a way back to each other. But trust was not something that could be repaired easily. It was a fragile thing, and she had shattered it without a second thought. "I don't know if I can trust you again," I admitted, the weight of my words heavy in the air. "You've turned our lives upside down, and it's hard to see a way forward." "I understand," she said, shoulders slumping in defeat. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I know I've ruined everything. But please, let's take the time to figure this out together. I love you, and I don't want to lose you." Her words hung in the air between us, but they felt hollow, like echoes of a love that had been tainted. I looked around the room at our friends, who were still processing the situation. I could feel the weight of their gazes, and the embarrassment washed over me again. This wasn't how I envisioned our anniversary, but here we were, standing on the precipice of heartbreak. "Can you give me some time?" I finally said, my voice quieter now. "I need to think about everything." "Of course," she replied, relief washing over her expression. "Take all the time you need. I'll respect whatever you decide." I turned away from her then, needing space to collect my thoughts. I walked towards the kitchen, the sound of laughter and music fading into the background. I felt like I was trapped in a surreal nightmare. My life had been upended in a matter of moments. As I leaned against the counter, I closed my eyes and let out a shaky breath. I thought about all the moments we had shared, the quiet evenings on the couch, the vacations we had taken, the dreams we had built together. It was hard to reconcile all that with the betrayal I felt. Could I ever truly forgive her? Could I ever look at her the same way again? The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me, and I knew I had a long road ahead. I could feel the anger ebbing away, replaced by a profound sadness. This wasn't just about the affair. It was about the trust that had been shattered, the love that felt so far away now. As I stood there, I realized that I had to make a choice that would define the future of our marriage. The rest of the party felt like a blur. I was there physically, but emotionally I had drifted far away. Friends attempted to engage me in small talk, but I could barely muster a smile. I could feel their eyes occasionally darting towards Sarah, who was now sitting at the table looking small and fragile, her head hung low. I had exposed her truth, and now she was left to face the reality of her actions. I excused myself to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face, trying to shake away the heaviness in my chest. The reflection staring back at me was a man I barely recognized. I searched my own eyes for answers, but all I found was confusion and hurt. I thought about the life we had built, the plans we had made. It felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the betrayal that had just unfolded. After what felt like an eternity, I returned to the party, where the mood had shifted to one of awkward tension. I could see a few friends whispering amongst themselves, casting curious glances in our direction. I wanted to scream at them to stop judging, to realize how deeply I was hurting. But I couldn't. I just stood there, my heart heavy, feeling exposed and vulnerable. Sarah approached me cautiously, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "Can we talk?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, and we stepped outside onto the patio, away from prying eyes. The cool night air hit me like a wave of reality, grounding me in the moment. "I feel like I don't even know who you are anymore," I said, my voice steady even though my heart was racing. "You've changed so much, and not just in the last few months. It feels like I've lost the woman I fell in love with." "I know," she replied, a tremor in her voice. "I've been so caught up in everything that I lost sight of what truly mattered. I'm sorry. I should have communicated better, but I let my insecurities get the better of me." "Insecurities?" I echoed. "You know I've always wanted to be there for you. I would have listened if you had just opened up instead of running away." She clenched her fists, clearly frustrated. "I was scared that you wouldn't understand, that you'd dismiss my feelings. I thought I could handle it on my own, but clearly I was wrong." "Yeah, you were," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "You didn't just handle it, you decided to betray me. You decided to hurt me when you could have talked to me." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't change what I did. I wish I could take it back, but I want to fix this. I want to be the wife you deserve." Her desperation tugged at me. I could see how much she was hurting, but I also knew that the pain she caused me ran deep. "It's not going to be easy, Sarah. Trust doesn't just come back overnight. It's going to take time, and I need to know you're committed to this." "I am," she said fervently. "I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling. I'll cut Justin out of my life completely, whatever it takes. I just need you to give me a chance to prove it." I felt a glimmer of something, maybe hope, but I quickly squashed it down. I needed to be cautious, to take my time. "I can't promise anything right now. I need to think about what I want, what's best for both of us," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Of course," she nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'll respect your decision. Just know that I love you and I don't want to lose you." I took a step back, needing space again. "Love isn't enough, Sarah. You've broken something fundamental between us. I need to process this, and you should too. I think we both need to take a step back and really think about what we want." As I walked back toward the party, I felt a heavy weight in my chest. Would I really be able to forgive her? Could we rebuild what we once had? The questions gnawed at me, and I knew the answers would not come easily. I spent the rest of the night trying to put on a brave face, but inside I was a mess. I could see Sarah watching me from a distance, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and despair. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, and I felt powerless to stop it. I could see how much she regretted her choices, but the damage was done. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I went to work, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying the events of that night over and over again. Each moment felt like a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. I tried to focus, but I couldn't shake the images of Sarah and Justin together, laughing and flirting while I was left in the dark. When I returned home, the house felt empty. The silence echoed through the rooms, and I found myself wandering from one space to the next, searching for a sense of normalcy that just wasn't there. I didn't know how to act around Sarah anymore. Could I look at her and not see the betrayal? As I lay in bed each night, I found myself staring at the ceiling, contemplating our future. I thought about the promises we had made, the dreams we had shared, and now they felt so fragile, like glass that could shatter at any moment. I knew I had to make a decision. I had to figure out what was best for me, for my mental health, and ultimately our relationship. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of my decision loomed heavily over me. I spent countless hours in turmoil, wrestling with the idea of forgiveness and the possibility of rebuilding my marriage. Each time I thought I had made progress in my decision-making, a wave of anger and hurt would wash over me, reminding me of the betrayal. Sarah was doing everything she could to show me she was committed to changing. She cut ties with Justin entirely, blocking him on all social media, deleting his number, and professing her undying love for me every chance she got. She even suggested couples counseling, which I agreed to reluctantly. Part of me wanted to believe that we could work through this, but another part of me was terrified of being hurt again. When we attended our first counseling session, I sat there, my heart racing as we shared our feelings in front of a stranger. The counselor, a kind-hearted woman named Dr. Thompson, guided us through our emotions. I could see how much Sarah wanted to make things right, but as I listened to her speak, I couldn't help but feel a knot of resentment forming in my stomach. I felt neglected, like I was fading into the background of our lives. Sarah had said, her voice shaky. I thought an affair would make me feel alive again, that I could have fun instead of feeling like a ghost. I wanted to scream. You could have come to me, but instead I just clenched my fists, willing myself to remain calm. Dr. Thompson turned to me, encouraging me to share my perspective. "And how did that make you feel?" she asked gently. "Betrayed," I replied, my voice low but firm. I felt betrayed and humiliated. I thought I was doing everything right, working hard to support us, and then I find out my wife is sharing intimate moments with another man. It felt like a death sentence for our relationship. As I spoke, I could feel my anger and pain spilling out into the room, raw and naked. I glanced at Sarah, who looked like she was about to crumble under the weight of my words. "I had given you everything, and you threw it all away for a fling. How can I possibly trust you again?" "I know," she said softly, tears pooling in her eyes. "I can't change the past, but I'm here, trying to make you see that I want to be better. I want to be the wife you deserve." Dr. Thompson nodded, encouraging us to keep communicating. "Trust takes time to rebuild, and both of you are going to have to put in the work," she said. "It's important to communicate openly and honestly about your feelings." I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. I knew she was right, but it was hard to see a path forward. As we continued our sessions, I felt a small part of me begin to thaw. I could see Sarah was genuinely trying, and every now and then I caught glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, the compassionate and loving partner who had once filled my life with joy. However, those moments were fleeting. The hurt and anger still simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over at the slightest provocation. There were nights when I would lay awake, replaying the betrayal over and over in my mind, wondering if I could ever truly forgive her. One evening, after returning from a particularly grueling counseling session, I found myself staring out the window, lost in thought. The world felt so still, yet my mind was racing. I wondered if I was making the right choice by trying to salvage our relationship. I loved Sarah, but could love alone mend the broken pieces of our marriage? After days of contemplation, I made a decision. I called Sarah into the living room, feeling the anxiety churn in my stomach. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. She looked apprehensive but nodded, sitting down next to me. "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking about everything," I began, my heart pounding. "About us, our marriage, and what we've been through. I don't want to jump into any decisions without serious thought." "Okay," she replied, her voice steady but quivering slightly. "I'm listening." "I think we both need time," I continued, struggling to articulate my feelings. "Time to heal, to reflect on what we truly want. I don't know if I can forgive you right now, and I don't want to force something that isn't there." Her expression shifted, a flicker of panic crossing her face. "Are you saying you want to separate? I think we need to take a step back," I said gently. "Not necessarily separate, but maybe living apart for a while. We can still work on our individual selves, and I can figure out if I want to work on this marriage." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she shook her head. "I don't want to lose you. I'll do anything to prove to you that I can change." "I know," I said, feeling a surge of sadness, "but I need to protect myself too. I can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not." "I understand," she said, her voice breaking. "Just know I'll be here waiting for you. I won't give up on us." As I watched her crumble, I felt my heart ache for the woman I once knew, the woman who had made me feel complete. But I also felt a sense of relief. I was finally taking control of my life, setting boundaries and prioritizing my own healing. That night, as I lay in bed alone, I felt a mix of sorrow and hope. I knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but I was determined to face it head on, whatever that might mean for the future of our marriage. The decision to take time apart wasn't easy, but as the days turned into weeks, I began to feel a sense of clarity I hadn't expected. I moved into a small apartment nearby, a space that felt stark and empty, but also provided the solitude I desperately needed. I surrounded myself with familiar comforts, books, old photographs, and the smell of fresh coffee in the morning, but nothing could mask the ache in my heart. Sarah and I agreed to meet regularly. Those meetings were a mix of painful honesty and cautious hope. We talked about our feelings, our regrets, and our desires for the future. Each conversation was like a tightrope walk, balancing between the love we once shared and the betrayal that hung over us like a dark cloud. One evening, as we sat in a small cafe, I could see the familiar glimmer of the woman I loved, but it was overshadowed by the reality of what she had done. "I've done a lot of thinking," I said, looking into her eyes, "and I want to be honest about where I stand." "Okay," she replied, her eyes wide with anticipation. "I miss you, I miss us, but I also know that I can't just jump back in like nothing happened. I need to see real change from you, and that means commitment to our counseling sessions and to being honest about your feelings." "I'll do anything," she exclaimed, her voice filled with desperation. "I've been working on myself. I know I messed up and I don't want to lose you. I want to build back trust. Just give me a chance." I nodded, feeling the knot in my stomach tight. "I want to believe you, but it's going to take time. I need to see that you're serious about this, that you're committed to doing the hard work necessary for us to heal." The conversations continued over the next few months. Slowly, I watched as Sarah started to make real changes in her life. She threw herself into therapy, focused on self-improvement, and began to communicate her feelings more openly. It was hard to witness sometimes, but I could see her trying to dig deep and confront her own insecurities. During this time apart, I found myself rediscovering who I was outside of our relationship. I started going to the gym, picking up old hobbies, and reconnecting with friends I had neglected. I was learning to prioritize my own happiness, finding joy in small moments, and rebuilding my sense of self. As the weeks turned into months, I felt a small shift in the air between us. Our conversations began to feel lighter, filled with laughter and genuine connection. I was still wary, still guarded, but there was a part of me that began to wonder if we could truly find our way back to each other. Eventually, I suggested we try living together again, but with clear boundaries and expectations in place. It was a step forward, but one that came with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "I want to see if this can work, but we have to take it slow," I said, my heart racing. "I'm ready for that," Sarah replied, her eyes shining with a mixture of hope and relief. As we settled back into a shared space, it felt different. I was much more aware of the little things, her habits, how she expressed love, the way she communicated when something was bothering her. I started to see the changes she had made, and in turn, it helped me let my guard down, if only a little. However, trust was a slow journey. There were moments of doubt, times when I would catch myself second-guessing her actions, but I reminded myself that healing wasn't linear. We were both learning, and I had to remind myself that Sarah's past mistakes didn't define who she was now. One evening, as we sat on the couch together watching a movie, I found myself lost in the moment. I leaned closer to her, feeling that familiar spark reigniting. "I'm glad we're back together," I said softly. "I want to believe in us again." "I want that too," she said, her voice steady. "I know I have to earn your trust back, but I promise I'll keep working on myself." As the weeks went by, I found myself opening up more. We started to laugh again, reminisce about our shared memories, and slowly, the intimacy we once had began to resurface. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like we were forging a path forward together. The journey wasn't without its challenges, but through counseling and open communication, we managed to navigate our way back to each other. I realized that while the past would always be a part of us, it didn't have to dictate our future. In the end, I learned that love is complicated and messy, but it can also be incredibly resilient. It requires effort and vulnerability, but it also demands honesty and accountability. As we began to rebuild our relationship, I felt a renewed sense of hope, knowing that while we had faced the storm, we could emerge stronger on the other side. Our love story was no longer just about the glittering moments. It was also about overcoming adversity and understanding the depths of our emotions. It was about learning to trust again, not only each other but ourselves. And as I held Sarah close that night, I understood that love, when nurtured and cared for, could thrive even in the face of betrayal. It was a reminder that we were both willing to fight for us. And in that fight, I found a glimmer of light in our journey to rebuild what had once been lost.